I have been in the moods for some fall goodness, you guys, and that brought me to sweet potatoes and butternut squash. And when I made this recipe for my daughter and son-in-law when they came over and they loved it, I knew I had to share it with you all. It is so good. I'm going to make this recipe 2 ways, but first I need to get this butternut squash in the microwave for 4 minutes. It'll make your life so much easier when cutting this thing up. So I'll stick this in the microwave for 4 minutes and then we'll get started. Super simple sweet potato and butternut squash, 2 ways that you are going to love. For this, we'll use about 1 to 2 sweet potatoes. We'll see how much will fit on my pan. About a quarter to a half of the butternut squash. This is a pretty big butternut squash. Garlic powder, onion powder, and garlic salt. If you don't like, or if you don't use salt anymore or the onion salt, you can just use more of the garlic powder. So I'll set those aside for now. I just want to show you this has been, the butternut squash was in the microwave for 4 minutes. And look how nice that cuts, you guys. I could have left this one, I guess, because it's a little bit bigger. It's a little harder, but I mean, that is smooth sailing. If you've ever cut enough butternut squash without putting it in the microwave first, you know what I mean. And then from here, I'll just cut the top part off. And then I'll cut it in half. And I'll cut the top in half too. And you can either cut it with the skin on and then cut the skin off, or you can peel the skin off with a potato peeler or a vegetable peeler. And yeah, and then cut the butternut squash that way. I'll show you one because I just want to show you how small to get the pieces. So it's just about, I guess, 1/2 inch pieces, about that big. And then from here, I just cut the skin off. And then I cut this in half and in little cubes down. The smaller the cube, the better, because it'll get those little crispy bites, which are so yummy. Sweet potatoes can also be hard to cut. So what I found to make it easier, I just chop off the ends. And then from one end, I cut rounds. So same, about 1/4 inch thick. And I cut down far enough so that I have a smaller piece, and then from that smaller piece I can begin to cut it in half. Nice. And then from here, how I'm going to chop it for this recipe is I'm going to cut this in half and then cut it in triangles. So just go down, cutting it in triangles. And I don't make them too thick because I like them super soft. So yeah, just nice little triangles. So I'll cut the rest of these and then we'll meet back for the spices. To the potatoes, I'll add a 1/2 tablespoon to a tablespoon of veggie broth. This is just so the spices will stick on. And I'll kind of move that around a little bit. Whoops. In the spices, I added a teaspoon of garlic salt, a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, and a 1/2 teaspoon of umami blend that I added in. The umami blend's optional in this one. It adds more of a savory taste. So I'll just sprinkle that out, and maybe you noticed I keep my skins on. I just like the taste of the skins. And I'll stir that around. And I just want to get the potatoes and the butternut squash coated. I have the oven preheating at 400 degrees. There you go. And just mix this around so the spices get all over the potatoes. Yum. And I'll just pour this out on a parchment lined baking sheet. And you want to spread them out so that they each kind of have their own little space on the baking sheet. The more that they stick together, the more moisture kind of stays in, and they won't get that little bit of crispiness, which is nice. I mean, they still taste good as long as they're all soft. All right, and this is recipe number 1. I'll put this in for 30 minutes and then we'll check it after that. I promised sweet potato and butternut squash 2 ways. So for this second way, we'll need some little red bell peppers. You can use the bigger size, just cut them in smaller pieces, but I had these little ones I'm gonna use. And a red onion, same amount, 2 sweet potatoes, and about 1/4 of that butternut squash I used. Butternut squash is cubed small, and the sweet potatoes are in those little triangles. The onion we'll cut into same triangle pieces. So I cut the ends off, cut it in half, peel the outside off, then cut it in half again, and then just like we did the sweet potatoes, down the sides. And this makes these nice little half moons. And I'll put these in a separate bowl that I'll add to the sweet potatoes later. I'll get the rest of those cut up just to show you with the little mini bell peppers. If you just cut down the center, these cut into nice, cute little rings. And the rings can just be added just like this to the baking sheet. So I'll get all these cut up and then I'll meet you back here to put the seasoning on. Just like the last batch, we'll add half a tablespoon of the vegetable broth. Kind of get that moved around. Then for this one, I added a ½ teaspoon of chipotle chili powder, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of the garlic salt, and ½ teaspoon of the umami blend, and ½ teaspoon of smoked paprika. Same deal, just mix it all up. Oh, the smoked paprika and the chipotle chili powder smell so good, you guys. It adds this smokiness that really pairs good with like a black bean soup or that red and black lentil chili I made. Whoops. Potatoes are flying everywhere. As you can see, most of the seasoning's out and in with the potatoes. So once that's in there, then I'll put the rest, those peppers and onions that I chopped up, I'll put the rest of the seasoning in there. Sprinkle that on top and stir it around. And then these are ready to go in the pan. So as soon as my pan's ready, I'll put these in the pan, put them in the oven, same temp, 400 degrees for 30 minutes, and then I'll check and probably put it in for another 20 to 30 minutes. So they'll be nice and crispy. Okay, it's been 30 minutes, you guys, for batch 1. I definitely want them more crispy than this. They're kicking up nicely though. So now I'll try and turn them over. Sometimes they get a little sticky. This is where we start to see the crispy bits and it getting a little browned on the other side. They smell so good already. And as you can see, I'm not super picky about it, but I just want to make sure that, you know, for the most part, we toss this around and get the potatoes and the butternut squash moved around. The butternut squash are getting really softened. So I think I'll try for about another 20 minutes to get them super crispy. All right, guys, they are all done. Yum, so crispy. So let's check them out. I usually will let them sit for about 5 minutes on the counter just so they can cool off and crisp up. So you may want to do that little secret trick. And then once they cool off, you can just kind of move them around. I'll take a little bit out to taste it. These are so good as a hearty bowl, just like in a big bowl with half sweet potato and butternut squash and half of like any kind of vegetable. I love zucchini, but this also would be good with like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. So I'll give it a little taste. Oh my gosh. The best bite is when you get them both together, the sweet potato and the butternut squash. You got that little hint of garlic with the onion powder combined with the sweetness of the sweet potato and butternut squash. I mean, the combo is just out of this world. And the texture of it, this is perfect fall. The texture of it is that little bit of crispy, crunchy on the outside, and then that soft, just sweetness, goodness on the inside. You've got to try this. I'm going to be making this for Thanksgiving. I'll get the next one going and then meet you back here for a taste. All right, you guys, next batch is ready to go in. Don't those red peppers and onions look so pretty with the butternut squash and sweet potato? Yum. And then I'll meet you back here for the taste now. I'm going to put them in for about 30 minutes. All right, you guys, second batch out. I took them out of the oven about 3 minutes ago just so they could sit out. But look how good this looks, you guys. So yummy. Oh my gosh. And the smell, it smells so good. You can really smell the red peppers and the spices together. So I'll get a couple of these out. These are a little soft. I probably, well, no. Gonna say I could have left them in for a little bit longer, but it is nice to have those super soft pieces along with those pieces that are a little bit crunchy. And I'll get an onion too, because it's always nice to have the perfect bite, one of each little thing. Oh, Lily wants to say hi. Little bugs. You know it's good when you can just eat it with your fingers. Oh my gosh. The red pepper with the heat of that chipotle chili powder and the smoked paprika, it all just goes together with the butternut squash and the sweetness of the sweet potato to make this perfect, just magic party in your mouth, you guys. You've got to try this. Like I said, this is perfect accompaniment to a pot of beans or chili. Put it on top, or even just with some quinoa. Put the sweet potatoes, butternut squash, and veggies on top, along with some green beans. I mean, you have the perfect meal. And that heat, it isn't too hot from the chipotle chili pepper. There's just enough to create this heat on the palate as it goes down. It is so good. I know what I'm having for dinner tonight. I'm not kidding. I can't get enough of these lately. I've been making them like every other day, and I just had to share it with you. So if you want some more super simple recipes, be sure to check out my playlist of super simple recipes, and I'll see you next time.